Let's talk a little Jose Mourinho because it's being reported that he would be interested in this. Now, I want to give everybody some context that I got to interview Jose Mourinho when he was in charge of Real Madrid and they had a preseason tour over in New York City when I was with Kick TV
Humble
at the
flex.
time.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to Kick TV. It was an unbelievable day. I went and interviewed Iker Casillas and Jose Mourinho, went to Yankee Stadium, watched him play Liverpool, then went to a concert that night of one of my favorite bands of all time, Block Party. It was like the best day ever. I had a blast. The thing about it was Jose Mourinho said he remembered me as a player. I still don't believe him to this day, but he does do a lot of research. We know that or at least I don't know if he does it, but his people. So maybe, but I still don't believe him. Maybe. I'll take that's my big flex of the day. Maybe. But my last question to him, Chuck, was: would you ever take over the U.S. men's national team? Would you ever come here and coach our team? And he laughed and said, not for 20 years. And that was 11 years ago. So it's interesting that he's expressing some interest. He has a quote saying that the player pool is interesting. There's some top players that are playing at some big clubs around Europe. I'm paraphrasing. And I'm kind of on, listen, I'm a Mourinho fan. I think that he has become a cartoon character in a lot of different ways, but when you kind of scrape all that away and his public persona and all that, the guy clearly knows the game. And when you think about what he did with Porto back in 2003, when he helped them win the Champions League, which was the job he got before he moved on to Chelsea and really started to take off as a manager. But that Porto team was interesting. Now, yeah, of course, they had some incredible talent on that team that followed him to Chelsea, and he nurtured that, though. And so there has been a knock on him that he plays defensive, of course, that he doesn't do well with young players. I think there are plenty of examples where that can get negated very quickly, that actually there are players that he has brought along. Right now, currently with Roma, they're in 4th in Serie A where he coaches. They have the best goals, expected goals against. It's the best for Roma in the top 5 leagues in Europe. Okay, he's organized. And so my only really concern with him and anybody that has managed club teams their whole career is switching gears to coach a national team. It's just different, Chuck. It's so much slower, and I just think he would be antsy. So I don't know what you think about Mourinho.
Well, one, I like to look at it from this perspective. In 2002 and 2006, when Bruce Arena was the manager for the U.S. Women's National Team, his prior experience was DC United and MLS and University of Virginia. Got us to a quarterfinals, okay? And then Bob Bradley came in, and Princeton head coach, and then assistant manager, then running Chicago Fire and Chivas, and he gets the job. Klinsmann comes in, obviously different perspective, had played at the highest level, won a World Cup, got third managing Germany, and comes in with all these different ideas, and people were super excited. And he did well for I feel like it was like ups and downs. Going to Holland and beating Holland in Germany, and you're like, oh my God, this is real. And then, you had some bad losses in CONCACAF, but ultimately in the 2014 World Cup, you felt pretty good until you got pummeled in Belgium. You still could have won the game. Then we go to Greg Berhalter, who managed the Columbus Crew in MLS and managed in Sweden in a second division, my old club. So we're talking about Jose Mourinho, who's won Champions League, has won titles.
Yeah.
What? How could you say no? He's not a good fit. That's what I don't understand, because I love the fact that he's charismatic too. I just think that would play into our media and growing the sport, because he's such a outspoken character, and
his press
he would draw a lot of attention.
Yeah.
So, it's just going to continue to go with the sport. And I think alongside this media juggernaut that we'll have for the 2026 World Cup, that he could manage the best out of this group. I mean, how could we frown upon Jose Mourinho wanting to manage the U.S. men's national team? As long as whoever comes to manage and has that type of pedigree and cares and puts everything into it.
I agree.
Then
that's right.
Who are we to say, hell no, we don't want Mourinho? What are we talking about? So I would be jumping for joy if Mourinho said, hey, I'm coming to manage the U.S. Like, let's go.
I agree with you on that. My only concern with him was just the rhythm change. But maybe he needs that. Obviously, he's been grinding for a long time, and this would just be enough. And it would allow him to travel, watch players, develop relationships. You got the Gold Cup this summer. You have Copa America in 24. You have a couple tournaments you can ramp up into 26. I think he can see how big of a tournament it's going to be, that he has an opportunity to really cement his legacy in a couple different ways, right? He's done it. He's won trophies wherever he's gone with different types of teams, different styles of teams. And now he's going to inherit a team that's young, that has something to prove, and obviously planted a seed of what they're capable of in 2022. Now, can they build off of that? It ticks a lot of boxes. And obviously, as somebody mentioned in the comments, with Roberto Martinez going to Portugal, which is Mourinho's home country, that interest might be real. I just hope that,
yes,
if it does happen, I'd let him see out the European season, of course, right? So we stay with whoever, Anthony Hudson or whoever, through the summer, and then he can come over and it just be a nice, clean break from his club stuff, and then he can move on and start to build us up and go from there. What I do love about Mourinho is his attention to detail. And so if you give that guy a national team where he's got even more time between games to set up how we want to play and start to have meaningful conversations with players in their downtime about what it's going to look like and their roles under him, I'm just curious about Jose Mourinho as a national team manager in general. Now, if you add the U.S. into it, I'm very intrigued. And I agree with you. The guy has been way too successful for us to be like,
no, he's not a good fit.
There's probably somebody else out there. Like, okay, then name that other person that's available. And I actually think in some ways that it could benefit the U.S. from just waiting until the European season ends in general, because then I think you're going to have a few more options as either managers leave or their time or they get sacked or whatever it is. And so again, we said this before, once this whole Berhalter stuff happened, even right after the World Cup, let's not rush into the next one.
No.
I mean, I don't want to wait a year like we did before and Dave Sarakin was in charge the whole time. But this makes sense to wait 4 or 5 more months without too many meaningful games and with other guys in charge that have already been part of the player pool, that have already been assistant coaches, and then we can name or find somebody that's really bought in, like you said, because I agree with you, Chuck. Whoever it is, no matter what their name is, whatever their experience is, as long as they care and are giving it everything they have, that's all you can ask for as a player, is a coach that really has your best interests at heart.
100%. And, I see some people saying Bielsa's in talks with Mexico, but he's also lined up to be the next Everton manager. Fernando Santos from Portugal just signed with Poland. So if you're looking at available managers, and the managers that maybe if you give them an incredible offer, they would leave their club team this summer. I think Simeone is another interesting one. Would he be, have the same excitement to come to manage the U.S. men's national team and leave club? I don't know, but it's worth, I think, seeing if he'd be interested. Patrick Vieira is another one. We've talked about Yogi Love. Antonio Conte, I just think from his personality and the way he acts, maybe that would be interesting to have him. And then, Pochettino and Mourinho, any of the above. If they were like, I'm in, I see great potential in the U.S. player pool. Like, I want to help them do something special in 2026. Let's go. What are we waiting for? Sign the dotted line.
I get where you're coming from, because you just don't want a manager that's coming in and it just sees it as like a 1 year
and like taking a big paycheck.
Yeah, right? Kind of like a stopgap. Well, I don't have anything else right now, so I guess I'll just do this. Like they're settling for this job. And maybe a name or two in there could feel like that for them in particular. But if Mourinho was going to leave a position where he's been helping Roma grow and kind of regain their identity and foothold back in Italy, to leave that to then say, hey, you know what? Actually, I like this U.S. men's national team project. I'm really curious about this. I'm fascinated about it. I'm ready to give the next 3 years of my life to help it grow and do something special in 26. Whether it's him or somebody else, if they have that embodiment or embody that attitude, then I'm totally cool with that, especially given their experience. And Mourinho, that would be pretty incredible. Now, I do think, or maybe there is some stuff at play here where, what about your thoughts on, this is just U.S. soccer trying to be in the conversation with big names to say that they're trying, and maybe they're just going to go with a Berhalter-esque type person, or Berhalter again anyway, but they just want to put it out there for optics. What do you say to that? Just because I think there's always maybe some strategy there as well with that we should discuss.
And what are you referring to in terms of
I'm just saying, like, hey, they can just say, hey, or Ernie Stewart, let's just use him as an example. Hey, we tried to get Zidane. We tried to get Mourinho. We tried to get Bielsa, we tried to get Simeone, whoever, but it was just more of a ploy so that they could say they were trying, but ultimately they just wanted to hire or rehire Greg Berhalter. I mean, I don't. That feels really.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't know, but I'm just seeing a lot of that type of chatter, and I just wanted to at least say I don't buy it, but I wanted to hear
people are covering their bases.
Yeah, right. I told you.
Yeah,
I told you. I was ready. I told you.
No, I think at this point, you just think, and it's going to take time until they find the next manager. But once whoever that person is found, it's just a thanks for getting the team to this point and turning the ship around, right, and pushing us to a new level and basically collecting this group of players. So it's just going to take time to find the right manager, but you have to take it to the next step. We saw kind of what this group's potential is and what they're capable of. So now it's time to say, all right, let's slow down, make the right choice for the next hire to take us to the next level. Because right now there's no coach hired, right, for a long-term plan. Anthony Hudson is taking them for this January camp. And I think we all know it's just we're buying our time till we find that next guy.
Okay.